All right, it's Sunjoe time, and I'm probably going to break this up into, I guess it'll probably be 4 parts. We have the base Sunjoe pressure washers, and the way I'm categorizing this are ones that you can't quick disconnect the gun, and then we have the upper, or I guess it would be the mid Sunjoe line, and then at some point in the future I'll do the Sunjoe, the pro stuff. So these are the really entry-level pressure washers. I can already tell you I wouldn't recommend any of these. The ARs and I believe the Karchers are all pretty much the same in that really low tier, you know, that $100 and below. The reason why I'm doing these is because some people do have them, and I wanted to buy them all to figure out fittings for them. You know, how could we adapt an aftermarket gun and hose to them? Again, they're not very quick disconnectable. They're just the way they're set up. A lot of these guns have like a funky, either a JIC fitting or some snap-in fitting. These entry-level machines, you know, if you don't have one, definitely, I can tell you, I haven't even turned them on yet, but you're not going to want to buy them, just because you're going to end up spending a lot more on all the fittings, which I'll show you here in a second, than it'd be worth. Just buy a Ryobi or buy a Greenworks. It's much simpler to adapt. And my suspicion is the entry-level Greenworks or Ryobis are going to have much better output, but we'll test it and we'll find out. Another thing I want to mention, you know, in the beginning of this video, you know, these pressure washers are not good. You know, there's no question. But I'm not questioning your you watching this. I'm not questioning your self-worth here. Don't attach yourself to these pressure washers just because I like one of them or punt it across the parking lot or smash it with a baseball bat. Doesn't mean I don't like you, right? So I'm just testing an object, a product. And I'd be lying to everybody if I faked it and said they were all beautiful and it's worth, you know, it's worth $100 that it cost. I'm just giving you my input on these and sharing with you the findings. But I'm going to add in my own little quirks into this video series. Otherwise, what's the point? Otherwise, I'd be miserable. So I'm just mentioning this in the beginning. When there's something here that I don't recommend or don't like, again, don't take it personally. It has nothing to do with you. I'm just testing a pressure washer. Don't attach yourself to it. I don't think of myself as better. I don't think of myself as worse. I just choose to buy a $1,000 Krenza because I use it all the time. That's just my choice. I value it. And these are junk. If this is junk, I'm going to tell you it's junk. And I can tell you every one of these is junk. And so, you know, again, just take it easy on me on this, on the comments and things. Okay, so let's talk about, this is the first conversation. If you haven't watched the Ryobi or the Greenworks videos, we haven't had to have this conversation because they use standard size connections. So what you'll notice is these fittings, these connections here, these are 15 millimeter internal openings. So this part here is 15 millimeter. Where a standard connection like this side of the device is 14 millimeters. So that's this center section here. So if you take, this is a 14 millimeter side, this is a 15 millimeter side. So if I take a 15 millimeter and put it on a 14 millimeter connection, it will fit. But the opposite doesn't happen. If I try to take a 14 millimeter and put it on a 15 millimeter, it won't fit, you know, because the hole will be too small. So this is the first time we've had to address this issue in the pressure washing project here. And this creates problems in that it's complicated. And this is one of the big reasons why I've bought every single one of these, because you don't know where the jump comes or where the change comes in the pressure washing line. And so like a SPX 1500 has a different connection than a 2500. And so I bought them all in order to figure this all out, as well as gather the data on testing. So one thing, you can save yourself the effort. Don't type up some big long drawn out thing, or you can save yourself the email. I appreciate it when you send it to me, but I'm well aware of all of this stuff, where it's available, where you can get it. It doesn't help me that there's an obscure company on Amazon that has this fitting here with a 15 millimeter connection, because it doesn't help. I can't source it. I can't get it. And so I'm working through my channels to get the fittings that we need. The good news is I have everything I need to make these things work. And then as time goes on, I'm going to develop ones that are stainless, because brass is never as good as stainless. They tend to corrode much quicker. But for a lot of these obscure 15 millimeter pressure washers, we need to use the 15 millimeter type fittings and do some adapting at times to make it work. So the packages that I'm putting together on these pressure washers, the idea is I'll just send you what works. And whether or not it's this or this really doesn't matter. What matters is that it works. But just know you're going to have anywhere from $20 to $40 extra when you buy a Chinese built or Chinese spec'd Sunjoe, AR, Karcher, these pressure washers that have these odd fittings. You're going to need $20 to $40 or $50 in some cases more than you would on a traditional 14 millimeter type fitting. So anyway, let's get rolling on these, and I'll talk more about this kind of stuff in the future. All right, so these pressure washers, this particular part of the line, because all of the guns have these weird either release type fittings, proprietary, or they have some sort of weird quarter or eighth inch type connection. I've got to put the pressure gauge on the outlet of the machine. Assuming this is, we'll see if this is flow dependent, because the flow may have to go the other way. Crap, this could be bad. This could be bad news for testing of these. Let's find out. But they do have proprietary connections, so none of these will accept a foam cannon on the stock configuration. This connection here is very similar to Karcher, but it doesn't fit a Karcher adapter because it's not flat. Yeah, I wouldn't buy any of these anyway or recommend any of these. So we're really just compiling the data just so it's available. So I have a complete set. But it's not, these are not really a viable option. The other problem with all of the Sunjoes is it has a weird, I'm guessing it's equal length threads. It's certainly not NPT, but I think it might be like 3/4 inch. It's 3/4 inch in size, but it's probably 3/4 inch BSP, and then whatever the conversion, however many millimeters that is. So they sell, or they provide this adapter. The Karchers do this too. The problem is the adapter's plastic here, just like the Ryobis and the Greenworks. They're also plastic, but what we'll end up seeing, a lot of these are going to leak. Now I've triple taped. So I did like 9 wraps, and then put it in a vise and torqued it down. So hopefully we can do most of these without leaking. But I probably have 3 or 4 hours into the 14 Sunjoes that we have, and then however many 12 Karchers that we have, getting these taped and torqued, so hopefully they don't leak and cause issues with our testing. Well, let's find out. Yeah, see, already leaking. So this is a really common complaint with these types, that we get leaking out of the inlet. And again, this has been taped and torqued as much as we can without it breaking. So I guess I'll probably have to find a solution for the inlet to be able to convert this to a metal type connection, to go metal to metal, and get rid of this plastic piece here. Otherwise, your Sunjoes are always going to leak, no matter if you get the 3001, the 3000 Max, any of them. All right, so let's try to warm some of the water out here. We're like 1090. It's interesting. I mean, these must all have the same pump. You get that same vomit, or it's like broken out of all of them. That's cool. I like that. In fairness to this little sucker, I mean, it's pumping out some whatever, some water. And then we can adjust our fan. You know, and in fact, I'd probably prefer that type of connection over like a lot of the really cheap guns on some of them. All right. So that's our stock output. So let's get our flow. This hose is really, really, really bad. Not pliable at all. Not as kinkable as the hoses that you get in the Ryobi stuff, but it's kind of a hard plastic. You know, this is a 1700 psi rated hose versus like a Cobra Jet's for 4,000. So just a different quality hose. All right, so let's do our GPM reading. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so this is the SPX 202E. What's it rated?
Rated 1450.
Okay, and it did, what did I just say, 1,090?
1,090.
And then...
1.48 GPM.
Okay, 14.3 pounds. Okay, so not too far off. So it did 1,090 PSI, 1.38 GPM. Let's go get our SPL test. How much current did it pull?
10.2.
So pretty efficient, 10.2 amps is what it pulled. So let's go get our SPL rating and then modify the gun and see what we get. So you'll know this is the, if you haven't watched the other videos and you're just interested in the Sunjoe, we have a little whip hose here, or not hose, but power cord that I cut open in order to pull, get an amperage rating. And the main reason why I want to capture that information is when we start changing orifices and messing with foam cannons, I don't want to be drawing too much current. You know, if this is rated at 13 amps, I don't want to be pulling 15 and potentially damaging the motor. So I'm at 15 feet. I have my little SPL gauge. 65 decibels. So this it just cracks me up, the sounds these things make. All right, so because in previous tests I didn't measure any difference in changing the hose and the gun, whether I use the stock hose or not, you really don't have a choice with this. If you want to upgrade your gun, you've got to upgrade the hose. And so we're going to pull it off here and then swap out our Cobra Jet hose in place. And then for these tests, I'm just using the Mosmatic gun. We won't get any difference in pressure rating, or it'll be negligible whether we use MTM or not. So let's put our Mosmatic on here. Let's go 3.0, and that gave us about 1,250 PSI. Let's see if we can work it a little less hard. Okay, that's the same 1,090 we were getting before. What do we pull in current?
9.8.
Okay, so we're pulling 9.8 amps, so that'll be sufficient. So let's get our GPM rating now. So this is a 3.0 nozzle. Let's see if our flow changes. $14.7.
1.43.
1.43 GPM. Now that could be time held. You know, so negligible difference between the way it's set up OE and with the aftermarket gun. So I guess, you know, that machine could be viable. Flows pretty well. I mean, it flows. We're gonna have to test the Ryobis, but the Greenworks. What did the Greenworks 1700 flow when we put the 2.5 orifice on it?
It was 1.27.
Okay, and this they just did what, 1.43? Yeah, so this flows more. Now, how much pressure did we have? Like 1,200?
1,200.
Okay, so we had about 100 more PSI, which would account for the slight difference in flow. So I think of those, and we're going to retest the Ryobi, but the Ryobi, the Greenworks, and then the Sunjoe in this little compact one, negligible. So let's go test the foam cannon. So I mixed up a fresh batch of Atom Soap 150 mLs. This is the 1.1 millimeter orifice version. We just want to test to make sure that we don't have too much current draw. So the Greenworks would have foamed the same, but I find, I don't know why it is, but if I leave soap in the bottle for like days and it was in there for like a week or so, your foam won't be as thick. But I mean, that's good. A viable setup, 1.1 millimeter orifice, all set up, an aftermarket gun, and you'll get a decent result. Of course, it sounds like it's gonna break every time you turn it on, but shoot, I mean, if you spend 89 or 100 bucks on this thing and it lasts you a couple of years, then I think you're doing okay. Oh, and it pulled 11.2 amps, so we're safe. This is a 13 amp rated machine, I think, and so I think we're good. Because what happens when the force pulls you back, your foot naturally comes off the gas. You have to keep your foot to the floor, foot to the